Politics doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens in an economy. Wealth has to come from somewhere. Before you can distribute, you must produce. And production has its own dynamics, its own constraints, its own feedback loops with politics. Today, we examine the economic sector. How does production interact with conflict, norms, legislation, and executive power? How do economic shocks propagate through the political system? And what determines whether an economy grows, stagnates, or collapses? Production capacity, our variable P, represents the economy's ability to generate wealth. P combines physical capital, infrastructure, human skills, natural resources, and organizational capability. It's not output itself, but the capacity to produce output. P is a slow-moving stock. It grows through investment and development. It shrinks through depreciation, destruction, or emigration. Changes in P typically take years or decades. What grows P? Investment of current production into future capacity, education that builds human capital, infrastructure development, institutional improvements that enable efficient production. What shrinks P? Conflict that destroys capital, brain drain as skilled people leave, underinvestment when current consumption takes priority, institutional decay that reduces efficiency. Actual output in any period depends on P and conditions. Output bar P x utilization, x efficiency. Utilization reflects how much capacity is actually being used. Conflict reduces utilization through strikes, disruption, and uncertainty. Stability increases utilization. Efficiency reflects how well capacity translates to output. Strong norms support efficiency through contract enforcement and low corruption. Weak norms reduce efficiency. Once output is produced, it gets distributed. Some goes to the rich through profits, rents, and returns on capital. Some goes to the poor through wages and transfers. The split determines how W changes. Here's the key political economic link. The level of L, legislative position, affects the split. High L means more goes to the poor. Low L means more goes to the rich. Policy choices determine distribution. Investment connects today's politics to tomorrow's production. Investment requires sacrificing current consumption. Someone doesn't get to consume now so that productive capacity can grow for later. Who sacrifices? That's a political decision. If the rich invest from their share, they defer consumption but expect future returns. If the poor sacrifice through forced savings or low wages, they bear the cost of growth they may not benefit from. Different political systems make different choices. High L systems often tax the rich and invest publicly. Low L systems leave investment to private capital. Mixed systems combine approaches. The investment rate determines how fast P grows. Higher investment, faster growth. But higher investment also means less consumption now. There's a fundamental tradeoff. Conflict affects investment directly. High conflict creates uncertainty. Why invest in capacity that might be destroyed or confiscated? Capital flight is rational when conflict is high. This creates a negative feedback loop. Conflict reduces investment. Reduced investment slows growth. Slow growth increases conflict. Economic shocks propagate through the political system. Imagine P suddenly drops. A war destroys capital. A plague kills workers. A resource depletes. A technology shift makes existing capacity obsolete. Less P means less output. Less output means less to distribute. Competition for shares intensifies. Conflict rises. Rising conflict puts pressure on the legislature. But with less output, there's less capacity to redistribute. The poor get less regardless of L because there's less total. The executive might try to maintain order, but declining conditions erode legitimacy. E depletes faster than it regenerates. Norms strain under pressure. People who followed rules during prosperity break them during scarcity. N erodes. A single economic shock cascades through all 5 sectors. The system can absorb small shocks. Large shocks can tip it into crisis. There's a fundamental tension between growth and distribution. High investment maximizes future P, but requires current sacrifice. Redistribution to the poor reduces the surplus available for investment. Some argue that inequality is necessary for growth. The rich save and invest. The poor consume. Concentrate wealth to maximize investment. Others argue that equality promotes growth. The poor spend, creating demand. Concentrated wealth gets hoarded. Spread wealth to maximize economic activity. The model doesn't resolve this debate. It captures it as a parameter choice. Different assumptions about how investment responds to distribution give different dynamics. What the model does show, the trade-off has political consequences. Choosing growth over distribution increases W, which increases C. Choosing distribution over growth slows P growth, which eventually constrains future options. There's no free lunch. Political economies must navigate this trade-off continuously. The production sector has hard boundaries. Subsistence floor. If output falls below what's needed for survival, people starve or flee. Mass death or emigration follows. The political system can't function without a minimum economic base. Carrying capacity. Resources and environment limit maximum sustainable output. Growth can't continue forever. Hitting limits forces difficult choices. Competitiveness. Boundary. In a world with other economies, being much less productive means being outcompeted. Capital and talent flow elsewhere. The closed economy assumption helps for analysis but misleads if taken too literally. These boundaries are constraints that the political system must respect. Push P below subsistence, and the system collapses. Ignore carrying capacity, and eventual reckoning arrives. Fall too far behind competitors, and the closed economy assumption becomes fiction. Here's your challenge. For your chosen political economy, assess the economic sector. What's the production capacity level? Growing, stable, or shrinking? How is output distributed? What's determining the split? What's the investment rate? Is capacity being built or depleted? Are there economic shocks in progress or on the horizon? Where is the economy relative to boundaries? How far from subsistence, from limits? How is the economy affecting politics? Growth reducing conflict? Stagnation increasing it? Next episode, resistance and rebellion. What happens when the system hits its boundaries, when normal dynamics fail and catastrophic change becomes possible? The final episode of Module 3. See you then.